a rainy day here in Rhode Island, but a beautiful day to record an episode of Hobby Talk, a cardboard podcast. This is episode 13, Ricky. Holy crap, we are flying through these episodes. Let's kick off with some pleasantries. How are you doing this fine morning?
I'm doing good this fine morning. It was hot here a few days ago, but now it's cold as hell. So I
It
thought New
indeed
England was
is.
the only place that had some bipolar weather, but it's here too.
Now, and spring's on the horizon, which is very nice. Obviously, some days in the 50s are coming up, but when it's raining like this, does it really matter what the temperature is? Cold is cold, the way I look at it. Um, I wanted to get into something real quick before we dive into our main topics here. Is you posted a story sale on your Instagram? I know you were at least prepping some cards to do so. Um, what's your purpose of a story sale? Obviously to sell cards, woo. But what's the thought process that goes into it? Like in terms of like making the card look good, price
Yeah,
point, shipping, obviously, marketing it, I guess we could say, like, because I personally don't do it. I mean, I'll kind of blast some cards out there, from time to time, but most of the time it's, to advertise what's here at the shop. So, do you want to just talk about that, the story sale on Instagram?
yeah. So I see, I see some people posting the same cards every day on their story sale, same price, same day. I
Mm.
mean, same price, same cards after day. It's like I try not to do that. Um, so like when I have a story sale, I try to let people know what's coming as opposed to just posting it on my story so they have something to look forward to. Um, so, yeah, pricing the cards out. It selling on Instagram for me at least is tough because all I really have on Instagram are a bunch of people who want to flip cards. So I don't. I have some collectors on Instagram that I can sell to, but
Yep.
when I do an Instagram story sale, it's more so to show what I have right now, and if I make a sale or two, too cool. But yeah, my main to sell are Facebook and eBay. I don't.
Now, I was actually about to ask you, is
Yeah,
Instagram your main source of selling? And you just said it was Facebook and eBay, right? So I'm assuming it's Facebook through like Facebook groups. eBay, obviously, there's going to be fees and such because you're selling. Like personally, what's your favorite method? I mean, I think everyone's going to say probably in person, just kind of assuming. But like for you, where you're selling on or posting on IG, selling on Instagram, selling on eBay, what's your personal preference in terms of how to expose yourself, your cards to people that you can't talk to face and try to make sales that way? And why? And why?
so Facebook is definitely my favorite. I'm just in so many groups, different like card groups, and I think that's one of the best ways to start selling. It's find a specific card group for what you have. So like I
Mhm.
have a lot of Bowman right now, Bowman Chrome Baseball. So I'm in Bowman baseball groups, stuff like that. So if you could find a group like when I had a lot of Shohei cards that I've since sold, I joined a couple of Shohei Otani card groups.
There's
So
actually
I,
specific groups for Shohei Ohtani.
oh yeah, I'm in like three of them.
Oh my god, that's so that is so stupid.
Well, one for Devers too that I'm in.
Oh
But
my god. Is there one
yeah,
for
no,
Rob Refsnyder? That one I'm
I'd
gonna
have to look
join.
it up. Um, but yeah, no, the the more what's the word I'm looking for? The more exact, I guess, group that you find.
Kind of more specific the group, the better.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if I'm looking for Rob Refsnyder cards, I should go to a Rob Refsnyder group, not a maybe necessarily
If it
baseball
exists,
group
yeah.
where there's going to be Otanis and Mookies and Trouts and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Now, let me ask you this. Would you or do you prefer selling through these social media outlets, or would you rather sell in person at shows or something? Like, what do
in
you think you
person.
have more success of?
Mm,
This is a thumper
so
for you.
the busiest show that I set up at was EC3Con, and
Now it
I
could be
did
a show or
pretty.
it could be like you could be a vendor or walking around. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
See, yeah, that was the best show that I've done, and I sold pretty well there. But I haven't gone to a car show since the National.
You haven't been to a show since the National?
No.
I'm sorry. What? Are
Yeah,
you serious?
I'm so serious.
Oh my
All the
god.
buying, all the buying, selling, whatever I've been doing have been online, and it sucks.
I go to a show, dude.
They're just they're so far out of Chicago. It's unreasonable.
There's nothing in Chicago.
Not near me, no.
Oh my god. That's horrendous. I mean, I can't think of any shows specifically in Boston. I mean, there's some in the surrounding areas, sure. But oh my god. Pack up the
Yeah,
car and go somewhere. Oh, you don't have a car no more.
yeah, exactly. I sold it to buy
Oh
some
my
Otani cards.
oh my god. That since the National, that is wild. Get on a plane and go somewhere. Take an Uber.
Dude, I might have to.
I I I came back from the EC3 con, not this past weekend, the weekend before, and it was wild. I got the Cranston show, a significantly smaller show this weekend. Next weekend, nothing, but the weekend after that, I got the Quincy show. Fly out for the Quincy
Ooh,
show. That's always a good
I,
show.
I like that Quincy show.
It's a really good show. So obviously you're doing a lot on social media, on the internet. You're buying, you're selling. Do you trade on there? I mean, how's the trading scene on like
I've
on
done a
Facebook?
handful of trades on
People trustworthy
card.
enough?
The ones I've dealt with, it's gone well far. But
Okay.
yeah, I really try not to do it unless I'm 100,000% sure that the deal is going to go smoothly.
Okay.
Um,
Well, that'd be too
I know
stressful for me.
some people want the other person to ship first or stuff like that. It's just, I don't deal with I don't really do trades online.
Okay. Well, that's all interesting to know because I feel like in a day and age now, I do see a lot of people posting their cards on social media. And I kind of alluded to it at the end of last episode is get your cards out there, post about them, make
Mm-hmm.
reels, show us what you got. And I just think having that social media presence is by far, one of the most important things you could do in this hobby because if you're trying to gain traction, a reputation, and we don't know what you have, or we haven't seen you post in like 3 months, then how reliable, how strong is that reputation? So, I mean, I think the consistency of uploading and posting is very important. And I think from my angle, I'm trying to get cards out there. I'm trying to advertise. I'm trying to market. I'm trying to connect with people. So doing a bunch of different things with social media. I mean, social media is one of, if not the most powerful tools out there. And the best part is it's completely free. Now, what you do with those tools is totally up to you. Story sales, posting, reels, going live. I mean, there's just so much you could do and so much you can take advantage of. And again, alluding to my outgoing take in last episode about building up that social media presence. I mean, that's basically like your Google review page is your social media. Is how
Mm-hmm.
many followers do you have? How much interactions do you have? How well known is your name? So that was a good little conversation I wanted to actually talk about last time, but I'm glad that we were able to kind of, at least brush the surface with it here in the first, 10 minutes or so of today's episode. So I do want to dive into obviously some impactful hobby news. And if anyone's not living under a rock, they probably already know about this. And that's Collectors, the parent company of PSA, has bought SGC. Now, for those that may not understand how, business or something like that may work, a company has bought another company. It's that simple. But these two
Mm-hmm.
companies are supposedly still going to be independent of each other. SGC has already said that, hey, we're still going to be SGC. And Ricky, I want to get your take on it because I know we've talked about PSA versus SGC before. We've compared and contrast nines, tens to raws. Does this do anything, in your humble opinion? I'll get into mine after. Does this do anything for the market value of SGC cards itself, regardless of grade? And do we think that down the road we could see any form of merger between PSA and SGC, or just the dissolvement of SGC outright?
Yeah, so I see, the quick reaction was, um, everyone hated the idea. Everyone was freaking out that that's can turn into PSA now with the long wait times, the upcharges, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But not now that I've thought about it, they probably they probably aren't. They probably will end up staying the same.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Collectors probably SGC so they can have those two options, like a balance kind of.
It,
So
go ahead,
go ahead.
finish. Go ahead.
No, yeah. So I was just gonna say, collectors probably, SGC will probably end up staying the same. But the CEO owner, he paid. But
Because I'm
yeah,
curious
I
to
mean,
see if this is a case of buying out your competition. Now we'll get into the grading report, February's grading report in a little bit. So we might be kind of backtracking, but SGC, great price point for a lot of people, great turnaround times. People like the look of the slabs, the all black tuxedo look. And that has gained a lot of traction and popularity over the past handful of years, really. And does PSA potentially see SGC as a threat? Who knows? Is that why they bought them? Maybe they did just see a great business opportunity and decided to, invest slash buy the company. Me personally, it's tough to really gauge because I don't think, if any, there will be a change for the immediate future, like between now and the national. I mean, we'll still see SGC at the national. We might even see them at the next one too. But like,
mhm.
I don't know, moving forward, if PSA just has such a strong grasp on the grading card market that they did in January, and again, we'll get into it for February. Why does this why make this move? Like what's your purpose here of spending and investing all this money into this company that was essentially a third tier company, again, according to at least January? And like what's the purpose here? Are you going to help? I don't know. Like, I mean, I fear that SGC is going to start to kind of have a little bit of PSA rub off on them with increased prices, slower turnaround times, more inconsistent grading, stuff that we know PSA to have. And people like SGC because of the price point, the turnaround time, the relative consistency in grading. So I'm very curious to see how this evolves over time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's been done before with other industries or whatever, but I just don't see collectors buying SGC to purposely fail it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, they know people like about it. They know its strong points, and I just think, like I said, they bought out SGC to have those two options. I
I mean,
mean,
it makes
we know
sense. I
what
mean,
we've done. We know what they've done with PSA, how popular it's gone, whatever. They've probably figured out they could do the same thing with SGC. So SGC
do
under
you,
culture's guidance might, who knows, it might be better.
do you think this is a case of, let's say, with collectors now owning these two companies, that PSA is like your luxury brand and SGC is more of your affordable outlet kind of a brand? And
Mm,
in terms of like, if you go pick a car, you want a BMW, you want a Cadillac, a Mercedes, that's kind of like your PSA. You're paying more, but you're also getting more. However, if you just need a car that has four wheels and an engine to get you to point A to point B, Toyota, Chevys, whatever, then go with the SGC. Do you think it's something like that?
yeah, exactly.
Giving Oh, okay.
Like you just said. I'm pretty sure Toyota owns like Mercedes or something like that. It might not be
I have
Mercedes,
no idea.
whatever. But yeah, it's just to have those two options, two different price point options.
But why couldn't
That's where I
PSA
think they're
just do this on their own? Why can't PSA offer, let's say, $13 grading from PSA instead of
because
having to buy SGC?
they don't have to. People
I
are
mean,
going to
you're
submit their
right, they
cards
don't.
because people are going to submit their cards at the price they want to anyway. So
I think
why
it's,
reduce the price if people are going to pay it?
I want to say last time I checked, it was like $25.
It's like when
$25 if you don't have the collectors club.
it's like when people complain about Tops and Fanatics quality control, print runs, all that stuff.
Hmm.
If you're still going to buy it, they're still going to do it.
I mean that's the same thing with Panini, too, with the football and the basketball for the time being, is they could write a giant X on the front of an Anthony Richardson rookie card and we're still going to buy the Prism box. People are still
Mm-hmm.
going to buy the $1,000 boxes even though they can't get Stroud, Levis, and Bryce Young autographs. You're basically chasing one guy. I mean, same thing with basketball. Wemby and Scoot's not in the product, so you're basically chasing the Thompson brothers and what, some other guys too. So it's it's a very interesting play. I mean, I think from just a pure business perspective, long term, I think it's a really good idea from collectors. But when I'm trying to look at it short term as a hobby perspective, I guess, like
Mm-hmm.
it like just if you want a company that offers a more affordable price, you could do it yourself because you control the pricing. It doesn't have to be $25. People will still pay for it, of course, but you could offer $13 pricing point. It might come back in 4 months, but people will still pay for the $13. They won't care about the turnaround time, except when their cards have been out for 2 months and they're like, oh, my cards are taking forever. But those are the same people that will still continuously grade with PSA. And that's where, again, that whole SGC, being a really good company kind of kicks in, is cheap price point, quick turnaround time. So I don't think anything will really come of this. Again, short term, maybe long term. Who knows? But it'll definitely be interesting to see what potential effects this may have on the hobby moving forward, if any at all. But it seems like there might not
It,
be.
it's funny you bring up that 2 month grading time. That's my thought right now.
I can't see it.
It says order
Oh,
prep December 2023, and it's still grading.
and what was that? That's 2.5 months ago. When did they
Yeah.
receive it?
December 15th.
So it's supposed to take 45 business days, Monday to Friday, not including holidays.
I did the value, so that's 60 days.
Oh, oh, so you're gonna be waiting a while.
Yeah, so it says the end of March, but I'm not holding my breath.
Did you do the bulk, the value bulk?
Yes.
Oh, well, right now it says 45 days for that too. So, like, again, people are still going to submit these cards regardless of the price point,
Oh
regardless
yeah,
of the
yeah.
turnaround time, because of the PSA name. And I think this is a really good segue to kind of kick into the grading report, which I did this once before. I'm going to try it again to see if I can share my screen. Here, boom. Oh, I got to put this on my other screen, my other monitor. Hold on. You can see it, right? I can see it on here.
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, there's my mouse. Perfect. So this is the February, guys. My camera's right here. I'm looking up here because my monitor's up here. Ricky's down here. So sorry for not looking at the camera as much as I want
Mhm.
to. But here is February 2024 items graded. There are the total numbers graded. The month over month change in percentage, that is MOM, and then YOY year over year from February 2023 to February 2024, the percentage of change in terms of cards graded. Ricky, I'll let you take a peek at this. What do you think?
Hmm. Beckett took a leap. Weird,
I
but
know we were just talking about them,
it's
talking about them
still
last month.
so low.
I couldn't agree more. And in Beckett's, last time I checked, it's still like about, I think, $20 to $25, maybe, depending if you want subgrades or not. But people just
Yeah.
aren't submitting to Beckett. But I thought they were the big two, them and PSA.
And then CGC is down 11%, still in second place. SGC is down 7.
So I guess one quick takeaway that I'll have from this is people oftentimes come into the shop and tell me that, oh, the hobby's dying, oh, the market's crashing, oh, all this, doom and gloom. Well,
Uh-huh.
if you want to compare it to 2020 and 2021, sure, the market's crashing. Sure, the market's dying. Again, if you look at it from a 10-year window, it's correcting. It is normalizing, I like to call it. Now,
Stabilizing.
stabilize, that's a good word. But so many people got into the hobby, they were interacting, and now a lot of those same people are out of the hobby. A lot of those in it for a minute, a lot of those, flippers, a lot of people don't come to the shop anymore that I used to see on a regular basis, in 21 and 22 and even in
Hey, I
2023.
moved to Chicago. That's why.
Not you. I
I
still talk to you. You're still in the hobby, but a lot of people just are flat out not in the hobby because they spent too much money. They lost too much on breaks.
Mhm.
Oh, their $2,000 John Moran or Zion Williamson cards are now worth $30. Well, they should never have been that priced. Anyways, what I'm trying to get at is if I'm looking at the year over year for these companies from February of 2023, when a lot of those people may have still been in the hobby, they're all in the positives. The exception of Beckett, significantly in the
Mhm.
positives. PSA 23% from this time last year, CGC 25%, SGC 58%, and then Beckett 3% from this time last year. So the hobby is not dying. It's not crashing. Again, from a short window, sure, but this time last year compared to now, it's still growing. Cards are still getting graded. I mean, grading cards has been a thing for 30 something years. That's not going to change, and it is not changing. People are spending 13, the 15, 20, $25 or whatever to get these cards graded. And that to me is actually a really good, beacon of hope that the hobby is actually in a really good spot, because if the hobby was crashing and it was such an abysmal thing to be a part of, nobody would be getting cards graded. And again, they're all in the positives from February 2023 to today, which is my big that to me is what's speaking to me the most.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. 2020. I'm trying to think how it was 2023. Was it? It
I
wasn't. It
mean,
wasn't. That was probably around the time that it started coming down from the bumps, right?
what do you mean coming down from the bumps?
Like from the COVID spikes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, I was
Yeah, I
trying
mean, I would
to.
probably say like the I don't know if we saw this in 2022, like that, that tick in downturn of pricing. I'd probably say it was more of a 2023, early 2023 thing.
Yeah.
Maybe like December, November 22, but I highly would doubt it, because a lot of people were still on that sugar high pretty much of, stimulus money, having all that built up, having investments from that into it, which obviously is now a thing of the past. So, I mean, I kind of look at it as like the really big shift in 2023 personally. When you want to stamp it, it doesn't matter to me, but I still think 2023 is more of a, like, even let's say the hobby was uber popular in 2023 and all these people were still in it. Well, it's still up in percentage. I mean,
Hmm.
PSA graded a million cards in January. They graded a million cards in February, and both year over years for both of those months were in the positives, I believe. Yeah, in January 2022, 24 last month, they were plus 22%, just as they are plus 23 this month. Um, I like to see CGC in second. That's positive. Down from last month, but still plus from last year.
Yeah.
Beckett still struggling though. I mean, what's going on with Beckett?
I was gonna
I
say,
mean,
what happened to them? Why do
so
people not like Beckett anymore?
because they're a tough grader. If you hand them your card, they're going to scrutinize the card and actually grade it for what it's supposed to be graded. If you're Rob Refschneider RPA or whatever is supposed to be a 7.5, they'll let you know. If your Pablo Reyes Topps Chrome Auto is supposed to be an 8 or a 9, they're gonna let you know, and they're not just gonna hand you a 10, kind of like PSA. And again, I'm not trying to bash PSA, but They hand out 10s a lot. And that's why I think they're seeing the amount of cards getting graded from them because of such. If PSA was in the same boat as Beckett in terms of grading difficulty, no way that they would be grading 1 million cards every month. I just don't believe it.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, but at the same time, you you could be more careful grading 66,000 cards a month versus $1.24 million. I mean, million cards a month. So
Like,
I don't want to. I don't want to give PSA an excuse,
but
but
if
like
they're
they,
this company, they should be prepared for such. And
yeah,
if, let's say, grading 1 million cards is a reason, let's call it, then why buy SGC to put more pressure on you? I mean, PSA is not buying SGC, but the company that owns PSA bought SGC. So why put more pressure on you? I'd say higher pressure in terms of keeping that price point down and keeping those turnaround times fast when the grading company that you already have can't do it or at least refuses to do it. That was like kind of like the thing that I was trying to refer to is like, why go buy someone else that's doing it when you can go out and do it? And if PSA was $15 a card, they would no problem see 1.5 million cards a month. I
mm,
mean, I would arguably say that they could see 2 million cards a month. I mean, that's just the type that I think 5 to 10 extra dollars off can do for a company like PSA because SGC is already doing it, but they're nowhere near PSA in terms of cards graded. Now, obviously, they're nowhere near Beckett. They're closer to CGC. But that was kind of the thing I was trying to get at. Like, why I'm so confused. Like, why buy a company that's doing it when you can go do it? So I do want to scroll down. So we didn't talk about this last time, but this is, can I zoom in on this? Oh, here we go. Perfect. This is what they're doing in turn. Oh, Jesus.
that's
Okay.
good.
So
That's
this is breaking it down. TCG, baseball, football, basketball, hockey, soccer, da 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 da. As you can see, it's not in any order, I don't believe. But PSA stronghold in the TCG area, stronghold in baseball, football. I mean, pretty much in every other category, they just have an
good.
absolute grip on. So we can talk about PSA and their strong grip on literally everything, but I do want to kind of mention that, and I wish I mentioned this last time, is that CGC, although they have 164,000, 151 of it is TCG, and then 10% of it is sports cards. Is that a problem? Do you think, Ricky, that 95% of the cards that they're grading is TCG, or at least one thing and not like many things?
I don't. I don't think that's a problem, really, because a Pokemon and all that are stupid popular. So it's not like it's not like there's going to be a shortage of cards to grade for them or whatever. Um, they're going to get their money. But yeah, no, I mean, from a TCG standpoint, it is nice to have a second option that's more popular.
Because how I'm looking at it now is CGC seems to be that company for TCG. I'm so many blah blah blah, so many acronyms. CGC seems to be the company to go take your cards if you have TCG cards. So I bear the question is if you see a sports card in a CGC holder, does that like turn you off from the card? Are you like instantly thinking no? Are you gonna crack it? Because if we scroll back up, we look at in a vacuum CGC as the second company. The past 2 months, they have graded the second most amount of cards comparative to the competition. Now we look at the data, and I'm going to assume it is fairly similar for January as well. But again, roughly 10% of it is sports cards. So if I'm looking at a CGC sports card, how does that make us feel if we're if we're looking to buy, trade, or whatever?
Me personally, it does kind of turn me off.
Why is that?
Just because
Are you are
because
you
they
are
I
you
feel like
being a PS homer right now?
no, kinda, but no, I feel like they do more. I feel like they do more for TCG than sports.
Okay.
Like like SGC used to be predominantly vintage because that's what people trusted. That was
Hmm.
their that was their expertise. So like someone people used to, you know, discredit other cards that weren't vintage when it was in an
That is
SGC
true.
slot.
That is
So I
true.
feel like that's what it is with CGC now with uh trading cards.
So let me ask you real quick, and I'm gonna scroll up because I don't want your answer to be biased unless you've already seen it. Now, when you think of if you were to see a sports card in a Beckett holder, does that turn you off? You're like, ugh, Beckett sport, Beckett baseball. Oh no, I'm all set. I'd rather it be PSA. Like, do you think that? Like when you see a Beckett card, like just price aside, not like, ooh, it's 10%, 20% of PSA, whatever.
Yeah,
No, just if you see a Beckett Otani, a Beckett Trout, a Beckett whoever, it could be football, basketball. I mean, I know you're doing more baseball now, but like if you see that card in a Beckett, now you said it would turn you off if it was CGC. Would it turn you off if it's Beckett?
I don't necessarily mind Beckett as long as it has the subgrades.
Okay, so I'm a
think
subgrade guy too. If a company offers it, I want it. Um,
yeah,
so assuming that it has subgrades, you're with it, right?
yes.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. Beckett's doing 32% TCG. At least in February, they were a TCG grading
Oh
company in the month of
wow.
February, at least. So, I mean, the numbers are a little bit different, but they are fairly the same. If you look at the fact that you said no to CGC because they were a trading card, TCG company, but that's what Beckett was doing in at least February. This is February, but again, we're looking at the data that we have. That's why I try to tell people don't buy the brand. Obviously, people have their preferences in company. It's not just you, Ricky. It's everybody who's hopefully listening. Yeah, I tell this to people all the time at the shop. Don't buy the brand, but we do have our brand preferences, and that's fine. But if I'm looking at a card in at least one of these four major companies, I'm not gonna be like, ooh, SGC football,
All right.
ooh.
Yeah. Um so the reason I, mainly try to stick to PSA is
Why are you
cuz
so
I
bad?
don't know how maybe you can help me with this. How do you value like a PSA versus Beckett or PSA versus CGC of the same grade? Cuz
This is always a
my
tricky one. It's
my
always
thing
tricky.
is people don't even want to pay 100% of PSA prices on a PSA slab.
People don't want to pay 100% period,
Exactly.
let alone whatever company it's in.
People don't want to pay PSA slab prices for a PSA slab. So
It's
how would I price a PSA versus CGC slab?
You could look at it as I guess more of an affordable option for people, but it depends on the price that you get the card for, whether you're buying the card as is and then selling it, or if you're grading it through it. Like your grading cost could be, I mean, even though you have the collector's membership, what was it, $18, $19, $19?
19. Yeah.
You could still go to SGC and grade the same amount of cards and save $6 a card. Therefore, but again, what are you going to value the card at? Everybody changes their like percentage compared to PSA value. Some people will call it, a PSA 10 compared to an SGC 10, anywhere from like 15 to 30% of a difference. I mean, I think it just depends on the card. If it's like a one of one or something like that, I mean, it generates its own value itself. When I look at Beckett, I see a Beckett 9.5. Well, I'm thinking to myself immediately, condition wise, that's a PSA 10. So, like, is it valued a PSA 10? It should be, but it's not because it's not a 10, and that's what people want. They want to see the 1 and the 0. They don't care about the 9 or a 9.5 or anything like that. And they don't want to put in the work to go cross it over, although the 9.5 could be a cheaper solution or a cheaper option compared to buying a PSA 10 version of the same card. So
Mm-hmm.
it's tough to really say because the market changes all the time. Every card's different. Every company's different. Like to me, I think all nines are the same. I don't care again, unless it's a super short print, like an out of 5 or something low like that, or if it's a vintage card, a thick card. I think unless they're one of those, all nines are the same. I don't care where they come from. You could give me a Joe Burrow Donruss base rookie card, and no matter what the company is, it's going to be the same to me. It's just there's nothing there that one company can offer compared to the other to increase its value at that grade. There's just nothing that they could do. So now PSA doesn't have a 9.5, so it's a little tough to judge that. But I mean, I think a CGC and an SGC 9.5 are better than PSA 9s. I humbly believe that, not only in terms of condition, but in terms of value. Because if we're going to look at these 4 companies as the 4 companies, then we have to start treating them as such, especially since PSA is not going to introduce a 9.5, and they never will. But when it gets to 10s, I'll never not say a PSA 10 has that top tier value because I firmly believe it does. Should it? No. But the hobby, that's just how the hobby has generated a PSA 10 to be perceived as. When I look at a Beckett 10, not a black label, but a Beckett 10, well, if a 9.5 is the same condition as a PSA 10, then shouldn't a Beckett 10 be worth more than a PSA 10? It should be, but people may not consider it as such. They may just consider it the same thing. So why are we going to bag on Beckett for offering more detailed grading than PSA? So it just people have their own philosophies and their own perception of these grading companies. Again, we talked about, I think last time, SGC 10 and what was it, a PSA 9. I'll take the SGC 10 all day long. I don't care who it is or what it is. I'll take it all day long. But, in comparative to a PSA 10, SGC 10, Beckett 10, CGC 10, I mean, PSA is just going to have the more resale value if that's just how the hobby has been formed to think. But to me, from these major grading companies, at least, a 10's a 10. I mean, CGC and Beckett offer 10 pluses in terms of their pristine 10 and the black label 10, respectively. But a 10's a 10. Now, if it's like a GMA 10 or some company that I've never heard of a 10, I could care less. I'm all set. But when these big 4 companies, these companies will always be at the National. They're at, the Dallas shows. They're at these big conventions. They're so reputable. It should not matter. The only thing that should matter is preference. So anything besides a PSA 10 is more affordable to buy, which is a damn shame, but that's just a case of it. And there's my spiel for 3 minutes or however long it was, 5 minutes. Break that down as you wish. People listening, take that as you wish. I mean, again, it's my opinion. Ricky's given his. I just don't think that one grading company should have such a stronghold on the market as such. And I guess you could lump in another 150,000 into it, even though they're independent companies. Just my opinion. I mean, PSA is easier to sell, but again, if I'm looking at a PSA 9, a Beckett 9, a CGC 9, what's the difference? I just don't think there's a difference. The only difference is one company is cheaper or more expensive than the other to get it graded and to have the same result.
Yeah, I mean, like we've said before, it's a 10 or bust. People don't. I haven't had an SGC sports card. I mean, CGC sports card in a while, so I don't know what.
Have you had their new label?
The
like the black and the white label?
Black one? I don't think I've had.
So they had a green and white, then they went to black and gold, and now it's black and white.
Yeah, I haven't had one since it was green.
Oh God. Oh, I just closed it out. Oh God. Crap. Keep talking. I'll pull it up. CGC new
No, I
label.
mean at the end of the day, it's hard to change the whole hobby the whole hobby's perspective. Something drastic is gonna have to happen at PSA for them to prefer other grading companies. Like who knows? Maybe CGC, now that they're under collectors, maybe they'll one day take over.
So that's a new
With
label.
okay, that's nice.
Way better than the green one, right? So when it was CSG, I hated the green label. I thought it looked ugly. Then they switched over to the
Hmm.
black and gold label. And that was just like their generic label. Regardless of the grade, it was black and gold. And I thought that was super clean. I loved it. They had that for a few months and then they switched over to CSG, CGC, all the damn same thing, G. And um they went with this black and white. So whether you're grading sports, TCG, doesn't matter. You're gonna get the same label. It's all one company. And I just think it's crisp, it's uniform. All the information's there on the front. They put the auto grade if there is one on the back. So it is there, but it's just a little hidden. But again, if I'm getting this in a 9 or a PSA 9 or a Beckett 9, what's the damn difference? It's all a 9. I mean, no one cares about 9s, so why should the price matter? Why should the price be a factor if no one cares about a 9, with the exception of them only caring about this 10 right here? That's the thing that like, again, preference is fine, but I need it to make sense, and it just doesn't make sense, and I don't know if it ever will.
If you need it to make sense, then I don't know what to tell you because, like you said,
I'm in the wrong hobby if I need sense.
it will never make sense.
So I guess I'll pivot. Do you have anything else to say about like the grading report or anything like that before I pivot? No, there's Beckett's
I,
still that bottom dweller.
I'm still trying to learn all this stuff. It's it,
I
like
mean, I look at it this way, and this is why I like to grade with CGC, like cards for the shop, is the price point I can get the card at compared to the alternative. I can grade if I have, like, let's say $500 to spend on grading. I can get more cards graded for my $500 from a major company in the past 2 months, at least the second best company in terms of popularity, than I can get with, let's say, PSA. I mean, I don't know what the numbers are, but if I can get 100 cards graded for $50, I'm just using round numbers here. Let's compared to going to PSA and only being able to get like 30 cards. Again, if they come back 9s, it don't matter. And yeah, the 10s are great, but like, hey, I can make it up on the back end because I can now sell more 9s and 9.5s and 10s of other things and make the difference up that way because they offer the 9.5, which helps. PSA doesn't. It's going to be automatically a 9, which I've already ranted and bitched about that. Okay, so the last thing that I wanted to get into was what this is going off of our grading thing, and it actually was inspired by your Instagram story post about Kurt's Card Care. What's a better buy, raw or graded? I'll just leave it as vague as possible, and I want you to tell me. It's turning off my monitor up here. I want you to tell me what's better, and I'll let you fill in all the itty bitty details because it's super vague.
what's better, raw or graded?
It
So
could
I
be.
prefer.
I was gonna say it could be for getting cards graded. It could be to get sell cards, trade cards, whatever. Doesn't matter.
I I don't want to. I don't want to, devalue my raw cards, but when I buy raw, I don't necessarily have the best eye when it comes to like condition and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Honesty
So
is
like,
important. That's fine.
yeah, so
Great. No.
that way I do like buying graded more just because that's the grade. There's no maybes, there's no ifs, whatever. If it's a 10, it's a 10. So when especially online, especially since I'm dealing more online now, buying
Mm-hmm.
raw is definitely tougher. I really only try to buy raw if it's a great deal. Um, but with that being said, yeah, I think I prefer raw. I mean, sorry, I think I prefer graded.
So my thing with raw versus graded is I think there's more of a potential margin with the raw card because I just think there's
Hmm.
more volatility because we could see a bad sale on eBay because the corner is smashed, there's a print line, it's off centered, whatever. Whereas let's say your card doesn't have any of that. It looks great. However, some people are gonna be like, oh, well, the last one did $13. Um, so I think from a potential ROI, I think raw is better because the volatility of the raw cards, it could swing one way or the other. It could bite you in the ass, or it could be a fruitful reward once you sell it. But it also gives you the option to submit the card to get graded for it to become a 9, 9.5, a 10, or whatever, where now the value is 2x, 3x, 4x, 5, whatever x of the raw price. Um, Compared to buying raw cards, I feel like the volatility isn't as much there because, like you said, it's a 9. That's the grade. It's a 10. That's the grade. And I just think the volatility of it from going from a $40 card to, let's say a $60 or $70 card, unless they do something crazy in terms of performance, just isn't there as easy as, let's say, a raw card is. Because with raw cards, it does depend on the condition much more because it's not a 9, it's not a 10. And going back to like you kind of saying that like you don't have the best of eye. I mean, a lot of people don't, and that's why I try to tell people, I'm like, buy in person so you can look at the card, you can look at the corners, and oh, you can see the edge where there, oh, there's a print line. It's just you
Hmm.
can't do that online because I you just don't know what the card is doing from the point you buy it, how it's handled, how it's packaged, how it's protected. You could have missed something. I mean, obviously transporting it in the mail, and it could have been a blurry picture. There could have been like, in terms of the quantity, there could have been like, let's say 5 cards. Well, you're looking at the pictures online. You don't know which one you're getting. You could be getting the one that's pictured or one just from the bottom of the stack. So what
Hmm.
I try to tell people, buy in person, sell online. And I think that's just a really smart strategy to do because you can buy in person 80%, 70%, whatever percent. Then you can go sell it online for 90 to 100. And then even after eBay fees, you're still walking away with more than what you paid. If all of that makes sense. So I mean, training your eye to pick things up. I mean, me personally, I think I don't want to say easy, but it's much easier in person compared to online.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
why I personally prefer it online. So when I heard you say you haven't been to a show since the National, I was like, huh? I was just so taken back.
Yeah, it's definitely tough.
So
I think
like,
I
do
miss
you, I was just
that's
going
one
to
thing
ask,
I
do you,
miss.
go ahead.
That's one thing I miss about living in Massachusetts.
The shows.
All the every weekend there was a show.
It's funny because people used to ask me like, "Oh, why don't you run your own card show?" And I'm like, I would love to, but it's just so saturated, and like I don't want to butt
Mhm.
heads with another show the weekend. There's just so much. If you look it up on Google, you could find one within an hour, of you every weekend if you really wanted to. It's good that there's this many shows out there. I love that there's this many shows out there. Sometimes too much is too much, but it's better than having no shows around. That's kind of how I look at it. But in terms of the buying raw or graded, like I don't know if you mentioned it or not, but do you personally have a preference on that? Regardless what you plan on doing with it, whether you plan on cleaning it to get graded or just to sell it as is to keep it, do you
No,
have a
yeah,
personal preference?
I prefer graded.
Okay. Now, have you noticed that your ROI profitability is higher or lower if it's graded compared to raw?
I
Because
want
a
to
lot of
say,
people, I was gonna say a lot of people want to get cards graded, and not everything should get graded. Some things should just be sold as raw. Some things should get graded. So like there is some factors that go into that.
yeah, I think graded have done better for me than raw.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You're just able to get that good of deals on the graded stuff that it's like, hey, you know what? I can still make my 10 to 30% on this card.
So I like to think I'm not a flipper,
Yeah.
so I buy people who I think will go up soon.
Hmm. James Wood.
Um, no, yeah, like I try to buy when they're lower and hold until they go higher. Like obviously that's the goal everyone wants to do, but um, like I was to keep circling back. I was buying Otani when no one else, and then I sold
Hmm.
him when everyone else was. So that's how I was able to get a decent return on my card. So like I'm usually, unless I get a great deal, I'm not going to buy it and then sell it as soon as it comes in the mail.
Hmm.
But
You play a little
yeah,
long
that's
game sometimes.
exactly.
Like
That's usually why I've been doing well with graded more.
like the Jackson Holiday card that you have, like what the auto, right? That's raw, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
What's the plan with that card?
I might hold it until he. I might. I'm probably going to hold it for when he gets announced that he made the major league roster, whether it's opening day, mid
Or
season.
this spring, yeah. Now,
Yeah.
does the turnaround time of, let's say, PSA affect your thought process about just keeping it raw? Let's just say the condition's great on it. I mean, I don't know what the true condition of the card is, but let's just say it looks good. Um, if PSA's turnaround time was quicker than what it was, you're on your third month now of waiting. Would you take the gamble to send it out to get graded to potentially be a 10, maybe a 9? But since it may take until the national for it to damn come back, you're telling yourself, like, well, if he makes the opening day roster or he gets called up in the middle of May, I'm not going to have the card. All that hype is going to go away by the time I get the card back. And he actually may, underperform when he first gets called up. I mean, that's not uncommon for young players to struggle out of the gate when they first get called up. So, like, are those factors that you're thinking about as well?
Um. So the submission I have at PSA now, it was a few Otanis, like 5 James Woods or something like
So
that.
hold on, going back to the Otanis real quick. You submitted that in December. Were you hoping or expecting to get those cards back before he signed? Oh wait, when did he sign? No, he signed in like November, didn't
He's
he, or
had yeah.
December? Oh, okay, so never mind. But were you expecting to get these cards back before opening day?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm looking at it now. It's all baseball besides one Jason Tatum and one Jalen Brown.
Okay.
So for Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown, obviously I knew I would get it before the playoffs, so that's fine with me. Um, but the baseball, I was hoping to get it before opening day. I still am, but it is kind of cutting it close.
So like this is the thing that people need to kind of consider when they go with the best grading company with the most value is that like it's gonna take time to
Yeah.
because that they're uber popular. I mean, they're grading a million cards a month. It's gonna take some time. And again, let's say Jackson Holiday again gets either makes the opening day roster or gets called up soon into the season. I mean, there's gonna be so much hype. There was so much hype around Ellie De La Cruz. No one expected him to perform as great as he did, but he did. His market blew up. Yeah, it simmered down a little bit, but that's just the nature of young players. We could see the same thing with Jackson Holiday, where he gets called up, he's raking 400 in his first 10 games, and the market is just going to be absolutely through the nose that if you send any cards out, you're not going to be able to reap those rewards because they're out at grading at PSA. Now, of course, any grading company could suffer from, turnaround times like that. I mean, I got an order from CGC that's supposed to take 40 or 45, business days that's been out since January and it's still scheduled for grading. So I mean, listen, it's not just a PSA issue. Every company
Who was
is going
this?
through that.
CGC?
Yeah. So
Damn.
their bulk takes four. They update it constantly, but I think last time I checked was 40 or 45 business days for turnaround time. I've gotten bulks back in 3 flat weeks. I've gotten them back in like the 40 business days that they promote. So
Why do you,
it's
So why are
Hmm?
they taking so long?
I don't know. It's been scheduled for grading for like a month though, which is a
That's
little
interesting.
little weird. Like the way I look at it, as long as I get it back within that 45 business days that they tell me that they're going to bring it back, that's all I care about. I've sent out some personal submissions for customers here at the shop, which is the next tier up, which takes about 20 business days. I've gotten those back in like 2-3 weeks flat as well. So it just depends on the service level, I guess. I mean, the weekends kind of add time to it, but it doesn't add time to the length that it's been out there. If that makes sense, because they just do business days, not actual calendar days. So I think the turnaround time. I mean, I think that's why SGC is so popular is because of their quick turnaround time. If you were to send that Jackson Holiday out to SGC, you might get it back before opening day. But then again, what's a 9.5, or 10 actually going to do for the card's value compared to it being raw for when you go to sell it? The question that we're always asking ourselves here on this podcast, and we just don't have an answer for. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, uh, like if it doesn't 10, it wasn't even worth sending in though at this point.
The damn thing could still 10, and it might not be worth more than a PSA 9 for. So,
Yeah,
like, again, is a PSA 9 worth more than raw? Maybe, maybe not. Might as well just sell it raw and then just, pocket the grading and shipping fees.
yeah, exactly. So
So
it's
we
probably
are
what we
up
end up
against.
planning on doing.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that's probably what I end up planning on doing.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people are in similar positions to you, especially with the length of turnaround times for any of these companies. Really, it is a factor, and that's what hopefully collectors buying SGC doesn't affect is the turnaround time. Because if you wanted to get it graded, you could go to SGC, and again, you'll probably get it back before opening day, and that's a service that is very, very appealing to a lot of people out there looking to grade cards. So we are up against it. But as always, Ricky, please share your outgoing take before we wrap it up.
We're still buying James Wood first and
He
foremost.
is raking, by the way. He is
Yes,
raking. Everyone's talking about the kid from the Yankees. Was it Spencer Jones, right? No one's talking about James Wood.
that's so fine with me. Well, MLB posted about him, so that was pretty huge. But
Damn right.
yeah, no. I mean, outgoing take is just I just want it to make sense. This whole grading thing, like everyone has their own formulas, sure, whatever, but just make it make sense. That's all I want.
I couldn't agree more. And I don't know if in this hobby specifically, this isn't a shot at anybody, but in this hobby specifically, I don't know if we'll ever get that. But we can hope for it. We can sure as hell hope for it. Um, I'm trying to think my outgoing take is I think we're still in that window of still being able to buy baseball. We're starting to see James Wood play well. We're starting to see Spencer Jones play well. We're starting to see, some of these prospects who may or may not make teams, but will at least probably be seen in the major league level this year. Get experience in playing time now, and we're starting to see them play pretty well. A lot of them, I think, between now and the next time the next episode comes out on the 21st. That's kind of pushing it. Um, I would still say you could probably still buy their cards for the fairly cheap price then, but you're starting to push it because I think more and more traction is going to start to come up to these guys' names, especially like a guy like James Wood. Hey, he might make the opening day roster, or Spencer Jones. He might make the opening day roster. And once you get that chatter, that's when people start recognizing these people more and more because I believe spring training cuts are happening this week. I believe. I think they're trimming down the rosters to whatever. I don't know. And if those other guys that aren't going to make the team go into minor league camp, whatever it's called, they kind of get put off the radar a little bit. So I think
Mm-hmm.
these next 2 weeks are a big opportunity to really buy up a lot of these guys, maybe grade them for when they get called up mid-season. Hopefully you'll have them back by then. But I think that this is the window to do it. And I think you probably have another 2 weeks at the very most to buy these guys before it may be too late, especially when you hear a guy like Jackson Holiday, hey, there's still a week left of spring training, but you made the opening day roster anyways. So that's my outgoing take there, Ricky.
Yeah, I just can't wait for baseball season.
I have MLB TV on every day, airing spring training games every day. It's just great. But ladies and gentlemen, guys, thank you so much for watching today's episode. We greatly appreciate it. Hopefully, today's episode was very, very engaging. If you have any thoughts, leave them down below in the comment section. But again, that will wrap it up for today's episode. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
See ya.